Okay, so for recording number 4, we watched that YouTube video, and what were some of the key points in the YouTube video? What did they talk a lot about in there? What was the chef situation? What was going on with the chef? How many of you cook? Do we have any chefs in the class? How many people would categorize yourself as kind of a very minimal chef that, Actually, I went out last night. This will not be for your notes. And I have to make my life very simple these days. My daughter's boyfriend, the one who we were taking to, we got an fender bender, likes to make very elaborate handmade pizzas. And so when I come home after work, driving home from here, the one thing I don't want to deal with is cleaning up a bunch of dishes. So last night, he likes to put them all in a wok and cook these things, and then put them and cut them and slice them and dice them. But I went out last night to the store and I got the pizza crust, I got the mozzarella, I got the sauce, and I got chopped up onions, chopped up green peppers, and chopped up steak. And I said, just put this on the darn thing and put it in the oven. Why did I do that? So I didn't want to bother with all these tasks. What does he like to do? Do all the things. Do I like to do that? No. Can I do that? No. Because I do not possess what as far as cooking? Well, the attention, but can I do slicing and dicing and walking and all these things simultaneously? No, those tasks for me represent a very difficult process, so I'm doing very controlled things at that point. How about the chef they were illustrating on the screen? How is that chef? Can he slice, dice, talk, and do all these things simultaneously? So a lot of dual tasking going on there. So dual tasking is a good example in that video where somebody can do all these things. All these things are very simple for that person. So when you're doing automatic processing, what's going on? You can shift attention. You don't really have to focus on one at a time. You can do simultaneous things. Can I teach and can I talk and can I lecture? Can I communicate with you? Yes, I can do all those things. I'm very used to being a teacher in that way. So anything else you got out of the video in that situation? Any other take-home points? They talked about that. The chef driving, they said just listening is one thing, but texting and driving, dual task, probably not a good idea. So what I wanted you to read, I think, was an article I just recently found, but it was one I used to use a long time ago. It was the Strayer article. Where did I put that? In the abstract. This was actually, it was a long time ago, but it was just when cell phones were coming out. Done at the University of Utah. It was the One Factor Good Driving article, I think, that I put somewhere up there. And what did they basically do in this study and find? What was done and what was found here? What did they do and find? Brittany, what did they do and find?
That cell phone, attention to your cell phone will divert from attention that you're driving.
Attention from your driving. It'll divert attention. Now, the hands-free situation. Is the problem with cell phones necessarily the motoric part of holding the cell phone? No, many times it's what resource? It's not the physical, I'm holding a cell phone and driving with one hand. It's what? The cognitive activity that's going on. And so this study was one of the first ones to really demonstrate. They basically had people shadowing one thing, holding the phone, listening or speaking. Now, how come they didn't have people texting in this article?
Probably weren't phones with texting
abilities.
Texting was not a part of the game in 2000. There were no cell phones that did this. So it wasn't part of it, but they basically found that failure would happen if you were having unconstrained conversation. So the dual task idea kind of takes place here. And if we go to the We want to get the Reader's Digest condensed version. Where should you go in this article?
Result.
Not the result so much. The first part of the discussion, the principal findings. If you engage in cell phone conversations, you miss twice as many simulated traffic signals. Did I illustrate that brilliantly 2 weeks ago, just for the sake of the class? Yep, the light hadn't turned green yet. Oopsie daisy. That was no fun. These deficits were equivalent for hands held and hands free, supporting what? That it's not the holding of the device, it's the cognitive activity. So it's the driving activity that's going on here that's really disrupting. So 465 really illustrates that. Any comments or questions about this? Okay, so let's, as we kind of get down towards the end of the class, have a few other articles to share with you, and maybe I'll just go through them with you, kind of one at a time here. So, a few other articles here, and let's see what we got. Let's see, we have the original Wickens article from, let's see, there it is. It's called Attentional Wickens, the PDF article. If you read the abstract here, multiple resource theory says we have these different resources that we use when we're doing dual tasks. And once again, he goes through his introduction, the history, the different models out there. His model is different. He talks about the auditory, the visual, the spatial, and the verbal, that you have to use all of those. If you look at figure 2, the sensory comes in. What is that requiring for you to do? You have a certain amount of resources. Now singing or playing an instrument and tapping, those are really using the same, well, not the same resources, but they're helping each other out in a way so you can actually do them. But if you're driving and you're texting, different resources, and it's really taking away attention from your major task. Processing codes, he's got all of his stuff here. We don't need that. Let's kind of get to the end of the story here. Conclusions. Yeah, the idea that we have these channels and they exist, and you have to kind of balance them out depending on the task and making good decisions on things. So that's the original Wickens idea. That was back in 2001. Let's see what we have. Let's go to the 2008 article. There it is. So he continued on in 2008. If we just look at the abstract here, multiple resource theory, I describe, past 50 years. He looks at 4 dimensions of potential task interference with the dual task situation here. And I think it's the model that he talks about in figure 1. Perception, cognition, and responding. Is it visual? Is it auditory? Is it using common resources, different resources? Do they help each other? Do they hurt? So you should know multiple resource theory. Let's see if he has a conclusion here. Maybe at the end, multiple resource theory basically says that these things can overlap. If they help you when they overlap, then tapping and singing work out just fine. But if it's texting and driving and eating and putting on makeup, those are all using different resources, and those could be having negative impacts on the human system. So Wickens' theory is pretty influential actually out there. And then last but not least, we have, does multitasking with mobile phones affect learning? A review. So this is August 2016. So if we look at this one, and thank you everybody for yawning, showing you're losing attention, so I need to wrap up class quickly here. So Wickens came up with this idea very early. If we read the abstract here, how does mobile phone impair learning? How can it? What does it do? What did they do here? They went through 132 studies. Did we talk about the different levels, the different types of evidence-based in this class at all? Did we talk about opinions and research articles, or did we not do that? So if you're looking through 132 articles, what does that kind of sound like?
A meta-analysis.
A meta-analysis, exactly the case. So this would be the idea of a meta-analysis. And once again, distraction sources, the ringing, the texting, gender, culture, reading, texting, and social application. Distraction targets, are you reading, are you attending, are you driving? The subjects, what are you actually talking about? Have you ever been in a situation where you're having a high-level conversation and you're in a terrible snowstorm or something? What should you do with that terrible conversation? Hang up and I'm driving in a snowstorm. I got to pay attention to this task. So those are difficult decisions to make, and I made a mistake a couple weeks ago, and it was a very simple one, so maybe God was showing me a little lesson there in that. Is this familiar to people here in the class? Have you done this before? Have you had close calls? Have you been in accidents? It's very easy to get in accidents because things happen very quickly, especially when you're on the road. I've actually chosen to pull off a lot more often now after that event a couple of weeks ago, as it would be. So multitasking is the way of it. This article kind of goes through that. We got the abstract. They go through all the literature with this, and then hopefully at the end, they talk about all the variables, raising public awareness, having policies. Are policies a good way? And no texting while you're driving should be the idea. Conclusion, the emerging literature, distraction, the sources, the targets, and the subjects really goes into Wiccan's theory of multiple resource theory. So in conclusion then, as we kind of wrap up class, we've talked about different theories here. What have been the different theories? It started out with which theories? Which theories did we start out with?
Leibniz, Deutsch and Treisman.
Treisman, yeah, kind of the idea of where is the filter? Is it early? It could be early, but what kind of blows that idea up? Brittany? The cocktail party phenomenon. Yep, I was just being a little silly with that. Okay, another poor joke by Dr. Tausman. Thank you for being the target of our amusing situation here. So the idea is, the cocktail party effect. So Deutsch said a light filter, but then a lot of stuff gets in. Treisman's idea is some stuff gets in, but it's kind of attenuated depending on that. Then we went on to the second theory, which was what? Automatic versus controlled processes. When you're learning how to do a task, it's serial, it's one at a time. All your attention needs to go into each step in doing it. Put your foot on the gas, turn the key, move, put it in reverse, move back, watch the driveway. All the resources now, it's pretty much automatic. Can that get you in trouble sometimes? Yeah, my car accident got me into some trouble because it was automatic, and oopsie daisy, made a little mistake with that situation. So skiing, driving, automatic versus controlled, and the differences between those. And then finally, what was our last theory? Multiple resource theory, that you can do some things simultaneously, but only if they help you out. Tapping and singing, tapping and playing an instrument, dual tasking there helps you with that. But then they really get into the mobile cell phone use and the idea of texting or recording messages while you're driving. What happens if you're driving in a snowstorm? Should you really be doing this, or heavy traffic? No, you got to turn it off and make the decision to do that. Do people often do that, or do people just keep? Not really. They just say, no, it's not going to happen, and they don't recognize it. So it's a risky type of behavior, but it can be okay 99% of the time. But did I do it 99 times, and was it okay? Yes. 2 weeks ago, was it okay? Nope, I bopped the car in front of me. So we have these three theories of attention. So just to give you a little preview at the next class, what we're going to do, have we been talking about cognitive neuroscience today? No, we've been talking about what? cognition, and the three models that we really like of cognitive activity. So when we meet next week on Tuesday, we're going to kind of go through a little more of the neuropsychology of attention and kind of review what we've covered. Bring your books with you at that point in time. We'll talk about attention in that way, and then your test will be a week from today, next Thursday. Do you guys have any comments or questions for me at this point in time? Has the class made pretty good sense for most people? Brittany, thank you for volunteering to have me say your name too many times loudly. We'll do other tasks and other classes that will require other things. That'll do it for today. Thank you all very much for listening, and take good notes. And if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you on Tuesday. Bring up your name tags and give them to me.